about 4.5 months since I moved into my Yom, and during most of that time, it's been pretty cold outside. So I've now got a good amount of experience what it's like to use this little Vermont casting stove that's behind me to get my heating needs met. And I thought I'd talk a little bit about what that's been like. I would say that most of the things I've learned throughout this process and most of the realities of heating this home with wood have kind of a plus side and a minus side. As an example, this stove generates a pretty good amount of ash, and the good side of that is that's actually a resource that I can use to be able to sprinkle it outside to deal with my icy walkways and such. Ash is just such a great resource there, because not only does it kind of melt snow and ice, as soon as you put it down, it gives you traction. So that's been really nice. On the downside, the ash, just even carefully taking it out of the stove, kicks up quite a bit of dust, and after 4 months, my place has quite a bit of ash silt throughout the place. So I gotta have to figure out a plan next year to be able to survive the winter and empty the stove ash without having my place get so damn dirty. So that's been kind of a bummer. Another aspect of it is that I have to maintain a lot of awareness about keeping my heat source going. So this Vermont casting stove is small. It needed to be small because my place is small. If I'd bought a big stove, it would have just blown everything out in terms of the heat. So I had to get a stove the appropriate size for this space. And the downside of that is that it just, even if I fill it completely full, it's not going to get any more than about 6 to 8 hours of burn time, I'd say. I've probably been averaging about 7 hours of burn time if I put some good logs in there and close it up real good. And so that is not anything like a modern home where you can just set the thermostat and forget it for weeks on end. I'm constantly having to pay attention to what kind of wood I put in, how much moisture is in the wood, how big the logs are, when was the last time I fed it, how long do I want the fire to go, what temperature do I want it to be. All those things have to be considered so that I can maintain it in a way that's going to keep the temperature in a reasonable range here. It's a lot to pay attention to, which can be kind of frustrating, but on the plus side, I feel like I've developed a great amount of both sensitivity and resilience. Because I'm having to track that, I've become very sensitive to heat as a resource. As a perfect example in terms of how deep that sensitivity goes, I haven't had a single time this entire winter that I've fallen asleep and the fire has gone out and I've woken up to no fire, because as soon as the fire starts to die down, somehow my system, even from a dead sleep, knows, hey, the fire's going out, you better get up and put some wood in it, which is pretty great. It's kind of a little miracle. As an example of the resilience, it's basically impossible to work with the stove in a way that keeps the temperature the perfect temperature that you want it for hours on end. There's kind of a range that you operate in. I'm working with all those factors I discussed earlier, plus the temperature outside, to get the temperature in here to be in a reasonable range. And that range is not 66 to 68 degrees that you might find from a modern furnace with a thermostat. It's probably more like on the cold side, 45 or 50 degrees, and on the hot side, when I mistakenly build the fire too big and the weather's a little warmer outside, I might get it to be 85 in here. I could do a damn hot yoga class. That's a much bigger range that I operate in, and that's given my body a certain kind of resilience. I've just adapted, whereas I think before, if my home had been 50 degrees, I might have really been bothered by that. Now I've spent this whole winter with these temperature variances, and I just don't mind. It can be 50 or it can be 80 in here, and it's really not that big of a deal. And I like having that kind of resilience. I don't think I would have been able to develop it had I not had this particular kind of challenge. Another way my body's adapted is just simply the amount of wood I've had to haul in here to burn in the stove. I think I read once a cord of wood probably weighs anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 pounds. I've probably burned close to 3 cords of wood. That's 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 pounds of biomass that I've moved from the cold outside into here, and believe me, that has been part of my winter workout for sure. It's kind of basically like if you've ever done a kettlebell carry at the gym, that's basically what it's like. I load it up in a little sack and kind of, it's 40 or 50 pounds I have to lug in here, and doing that over and over again has definitely given me another kind of physical resilience. I can't say it's always pleasant. Sometimes when it's a cold morning, I got to lug firewood in. It's frustrating, or it's uncomfortable. But in the long run, I do feel like it gives me a little more physical resilience, which I like. I've gone through several levels of mastery at being able to start and maintain fires in the stove. The first level was just being able to build fires consistently to get them started. And the big problem there was that I didn't have much of an understanding of the moisture content of wood. And so I kept trying to start fires with wood that was just too wet, which was very frustrating. Once I got that figured out, and I knew I had to start with sort of smaller wood and drier wood, then it got pretty easy. I got myself a little system down. I would just start with a few natural fire starters. They're made especially for being able to start fires easily. And on top of that, I would put some really dry, about 1-inch diameter kindling wood and kind of gradually build up the size with a little stack and wait for that to kind of develop some coals. And then from there, I could be a little more aggressive, putting bigger pieces of wood on or even wetter ones to kind of make the fire go a little longer. I've also acquired the right equipment, I think, over time to help me be able to manage these fires more consistently. So as some examples, I got myself a nice little ash shovel to be able to easily clean out ash. I got a kind of a poker to be able to move things around. I picked up a nice pair of leather gloves that are specifically for working with stoves, and so I can use those and not worry about burning my hands. And even occasionally, I'll just grab a log in there, right in the fire, and turn it if I need to, which has been super handy. It gives me lots of control. And then for lighting fires, I've got a couple they're like butane torches, which are a lot nicer than you're kind of just trying to light it with a match or whatever. At this point, I feel pretty comfortable getting my heating needs met with a wood stove. The only real change that I want to make is having some better way to organize the wood that I bring inside. Right now it's just kind of laying in piles on the floor, and it'd be really nice to have some kind of a rack or shelf to put it on. I'm also sure there'll be some other optimizations that come up over time, but I don't really need anything else to be different. And I have to say I'm pretty happy with having made this choice for how to get this particular need met.